Hey beautiful one, this is Lynda Gaiao here and I'm bringing you this week's energy or transit update. It's going to be a bit of an emotional week this week as we are dealing with a gate that's in the solar plexus, which is all around emotional intelligence. And this specific gate is like a gateway or a doorway to the emotions, to the flow of emotions and to emotional intelligence. And just like with any doorway, it can either be open or closed. And that really controls this flow of energy in outwards and inwards potentially. And the thing that it's looking towards is the gate on the other side, which is the 59. And that's about breaking down barriers to intimacy. So when you've got the 6 on this side, it's kind of like it's looking at, do I want to be intimate or not? Am I open to intimacy or not? And it's either about allowing the flow or not. Now, the reason why we have conflict or friction is because friction is needed in order to create a deep intimacy. And with this kind of intimacy comes this creative potential or potentially this mutation that can come through. And you need this friction, you need this heat to come through in order for it to reach its full potential. One thing we need to be aware of when we're looking at human design and when we're really checking into how things operate, this is form consciousness. It's about the body and not the mind. So the openness or the closedness to intimacy is not something you can control with your mind. It's really about going into the body, into a cellular level, and allowing the body to be open when it's ready to be open or closed when it's closed. And it's not something you can then force or push or try to make happen with the mind. You just got to allow it to naturally come through as it needs to. When we're looking at growth, it really can't happen without a certain amount of friction. And so friction is necessary. Friction is a part of our growth experience. And, when we first hear the words conflict or friction, and even if we try to look their definitions up, most of us will associate the meanings of these words with something quite negative. But in this context, it can actually be seen as something quite useful and something quite helpful to aid the process of change, to bring something creative, to bring something new into existence. And there's this kind of friction or this heat energy that gets created here, which if we can stand in our strength and stand in our purpose, can be extremely useful. We just need to witness it, observe it, and allow ourselves to move through this place of friction and into this next place of opening awareness and greater emotional intelligence. And this is where we can gain deep clarity about what's going on for us. When we are thinking about it purely in the context of being friction and conflict in terms of aggravated energy or distorted energy or fighting, but not for the health of our being, not for the correctness of our being, but from a mental place. When the mind jumps in and it kind of makes it personal and it distorts the story and it kind of messes it all up. We're no longer operating from the place of the body anymore. We simply got into the mind. And this is where a kind of chaos and chaoticness can happen, which doesn't really lead to anything healthy. It doesn't really lead to anything good. What we're wanting to do is to drop into our bodies and to become aware of this friction, to become aware of the conflict, and to be able to sit inside our being and go, am I open to this particular version of conflict or friction, or am I not? Because, this open and closed nature of this particular trait is therefore a type of protection or a type of boundary for us, because we're not designed to have conflict or friction with every single being out there. It's really quite selective. And when we can, drop into our form consciousness, know what our decision-making strategy is, then we're able to really be attuned to what this friction is correct for me. This is a place where I actually want to move through that friction into this place of intimacy where this creative process can happen, or I'm not. If you have the emotional intelligence or the solar plexus open in your design, so it's undefined, the not self potential of that is for us to become serious people pleasers. We can really try very hard to ensure that everyone around us, we're managing all their energy and we're checking in with them and we're making sure that they're all okay. But ultimately it's about us, because we don't want to feel the amplification of a distorted frequency coming from the emotional center. So we're doing our best to manage everybody to make sure that they're all okay, so that we feel better. And this is the people pleasing that can essentially see us using our energy incorrectly. What we want to be doing, whether it's open or closed, is to be managing our own energy to, whether it's defined or undefined, your energy is your own to manage. And when you're really clear about your own energy, you can be very clear about other people's energy. You can be clear whether emotions that are coming up for you is linked to stories of your own past. So it's something that you own and that you can process on your own. Or is this an amplification that's coming to you from other people who are not even aware of their defined emotional centers, and they're basically blasting their energy outwards? And then you can look at that and go, well, this person is unaware. They're just sending out this frequency. It's not personal. I can just allow this frequency to go past me. Or, you can jump in it with your mind, feel like it's personal, feel like you're being attacked, and then ultimately descend into this mental distortion place, which is really no good for any of us. When you look at the body graph for today, you'll see that the full channel, the 59.6, is active. And this is the source wave for the emotional intelligence. This is where the wave for emotions begins. So it's got an extremely powerful impact on us. And, when you think about the fact that 50% of the population has emotions as their decision-making strategy, and the other 50% of us are amplifying whatever emotions are coming from that place, you can see how, this source wave that's active at the moment can be a really powerful force in stirring up the past, in stirring up the stories of what's happened to us in the past, where we've allowed conflict to send us into really bad places in our lives. And so what I'd really encourage you to do is to, first of all, know what your decision-making strategy is. Know whether you're defined or undefined in the emotional center. And then start to become really aware of, what is coming up from a mental place, what is coming up from a distorted frequency that's being blasted out to you, and where is somebody transmitting a wave that's really clean and healthy, where you can engage in this beautiful energy that's open to intimacy and allows this creative process to happen. Because when you're in tune to your own energy and you understand how all these mechanics work together, you can have some amazingly intimate and deeply creative processes come out of this energy. But on the flip side, we can get really lost, especially if we're in working environments where people are just not aware of their emotional intelligence or not. And it's kind of like being spammed by all of this distorted energy that's being sent out. And then this is where we have all these bickering and conflicts within the workplace that are extremely devastating and destroying to our world and to anything creative, really. If you're someone that's emotionally defined, it's your responsibility to understand the wave of energy that you're sending out and how that is impacting the people around you. And if you're emotionally undefined, you're here to be a witness, to have awareness, and to see where the wisdom potential is in being surrounded by emotional beings. And so you can see how each one of us has a part to play. We each are a part in the bigger mechanics of all of it. And when you can be really clear what your role is, there's this freedom that comes from it. We don't get pulled into the drama. Instead, we can just witness the dynamics of it playing out around us. If we think back to the past few weeks, we've gone from trait 64, which is all around confusion. We then moved into the 47, which was about realization. And now we've transitioned into the 6, which is confusion. And if we follow the steps of that, on the other side of the 6 when everything's lined up and we're clean in how we're interacting with other beings that are correct and healthy for us, we can get to this place of clarity. Because anything to do with the emotional intelligence, over time, we reach a place of clarity. So we can get to this clarity process. And I guess it's an opportunity for us to sit with the friction. If it's correct for us to just sit with it, not needing to do anything with it, not needing to change, not jumping into a mental story, but just sitting in the friction and staying with it long enough to see the creative potential on the other side, and knowing when you open or close to this energy. Gate 6 is a roll gate. So if you're a 1-3, you're going to be looking at weakness and strength, or allegiance and rejection. So just start watching, what is your particular role? How are you designed to engage with or interact with conflict? If you're a 2-4, for example, you're going to have on the one side the advance and withdrawal, and on the other side the kindness and the meanness. And then if you have a 5 in your role, you're going to be looking at selflessness or selfishness. And on the 6, you're going to be looking at sympathy and apathy. And these are really how we design to engage with conflict. And so just looking at your public role and seeing how it's playing out for you. My particular profile is a 2-4, and I can definitely see how I can switch between this kindness and the meanness around conflict. I can be extremely kind and open to people, but I can also be really mean when the conflict shows up. And I either take it on head on, I go in advancing into it, or I withdraw completely, like I back out of it. And just knowing when it's correct for you, like looking at the timing and your openness or close to the energy. And remember, it's not about the mind, it's about dropping into the body and just seeing how this energy is aligned for you or not at this time. So as you move through this particular energy over the next week, what I'd encourage you to look out for is watching what type of conflict and friction is showing up for you. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from your own mind? Is it coming from outside of you? How open or how close do you feel to the conflict? Does it feel correct for you to engage or not? Is it time for you to really step in or step back? There's no use jumping into the pool and everybody drowns in the emotions, because that's not helpful to anybody. Sometimes when people are unaware of their emotional beings and the energy they're putting out, you just need to let them do their thing, to explode, to have whatever they're having, but you stand on the outside. You don't need to jump in there with them. And once they've finished and they don't see you reacting or amplifying, you're just a witness to what's going on, then you can have a great session. If it's correct, there becomes this respect there, because they see you standing in your power and you're able to then engage. You're able to then go into the intimacy rather than into the drama, and just start seeing, are you amplifying or are you just being the witness? How is it showing up for you? Where is it showing up for you? And even if there's chaos and conflict in your environment, can you just sit with that? Can you just watch it? Do you see the intelligence or the wisdom in it? And are you able to stick around long enough to reach that place of wisdom and the potential of intelligence through it? Can you get into the clarification process? Because I think for a lot of us, especially if we've had challenging experiences around anything to do with the emotions, we can have the tendency to back out and run away, especially if it's really in personal and close relationships. You might be triggered from past things that have happened to you, and any sign of conflict or friction, you're like, I'm out of here. But it may not be correct for you to just run and withdraw. It might actually be right for you to stand and to face it and to see what's on the other side. And this is where it becomes so important to be clean in your energy and understand what's you and what's not you, because you can then separate the mind and the mental story from it, and instead you can drop into the body and go, look, this might not feel very comfortable for me right now, but I feel that there's wisdom potential here for me, so I'm going to stick around and see where it leads to. instead of just running away because it's triggering a story from your past or from something that you might think is going to happen but hasn't even happened yet. So I'd encourage you to just, be gentle with yourself, but at the same time stand in your strength this week and really anchor into your energy and just see what shows up. You never know. On the other side of the conflict could be the most amazing intimacy that comes out of that. And it doesn't have to just be sexual intimacy. It can be like a deepening of a connection with another being, or birthing a creative project in your business that is just beyond your wildest imagination and dreams. So don't run away from conflict just because it's conflict. Know if it's correct and stick around if it is correct. This is going to be a big week for us, and so I'd encourage you to just really be aware and to see how it shows up for you. I hope you've enjoyed this week's video. If you've got any comments, I'd love to hear from you. If there's anything else you'd like to see from me, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll be back next week with the energy update for what's coming next. I hope you have a magical and beautiful week. Bye for now, beautiful souls.